sounds like Mark Steck is having some issues, so we're going to give him a couple minutes to get logged back in, and I'll let you know when we're ready to start.
Okay.
Carly, I think Barry Brickner is over on the attendees list.
Yep, I'm working on that now.
Thank you. And is that Mr. Turner whose phone number is over there?
Yep, I got him too.
Okay, perfect.
And Joe Tangari looks like he's over there as well.
All right, I'll grab him too. Okay, it looks like Mark has joined us, so Chair, whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, welcome to the Planning Commission Public Hearing Regular Meeting for September 17th, 2020. To start with, during the public hearing portion, once the Planning Commission Chair has opened the public hearing portion of the meeting, members of the public who wish to speak should use the raise hand feature in the Zoom webinar, or if you're dialed into the meeting, use #9 on your phone to raise your hand. You will be acknowledged by the host using your name if available, or the last 4 digits of your phone number, and will be permitted by the host to communicate directly with the Planning Commission and others about your question or comment. And you will also be recorded as part of the meeting. You'll be allowed to mute and unmute yourself only when permitted to do so by the host using the mute unmute feature in the Zoom meeting, or if dialed in using the #6 or the *6 for both mute and unmute. Members of the public who wish to speak must begin their comments by identifying their name and the street they live on. Members of the public wishing to speak on items other than those included in the public hearing section of the agenda will have an opportunity to do so when the Planning Commission Chairperson announces that the public comment portion of the agenda has been opened. Participation and public comment portion of the meeting are the same procedures as outlined above for the participation in the scheduled public hearing. So with that, can we have a roll call, please, Ms. McGuire?
Sure. Commissioner Brickner,
Here.
Conigan, Commissioner Conigan,
Here.
Manti,
Here.
McRae,
Yes.
Orr,
Here.
Schwartz,
Present.
Treffitt,
Here.
Turner, Commissioner Turner, can you unmute your phone? Okay, we'll go to Chair Stimson,
Here.
and if Mr. Turner could do there we go. Commissioner Turner,
Here.
thank you. All present.
Okay. We have an agenda in front of us.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Orr,
I move that we approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Mr. Brickner with the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, actually, sorry about that. Ms. McGuire, can you take roll on that?
Yes. Commissioner Brickner,
Yes.
Conigan,
Yes.
Manti,
Yes.
McRae,
Yes.
Orr,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Treffitt,
Yeah.
Turner,
Yes.
and Chair Stimson.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, we'll start with the public hearing portion of the meeting, starting with rezoning request 2-7-2020. The location is 33466 8 Mile Road. The proposal is to rezone a parcel currently zoned OS2 Planned Office District to B3 General Business District. The action requested is a recommendation to City Council. The applicant is Hans Coleman. Can we start by hearing from the applicant, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this is Hans Coleman. Thank you very much. What I wanted to do, and I've talked to Mark Steck at length over the last few days. I bought this property, to give you a little history. I bought this property, the vacant lot, so not the lot that were there. Are they being heard at the same time on the agenda? Or
We're going to
we
go
need to
through each
separate
one
them?
individually, but if you want to discuss both right now, but we will be voting and reviewing each one individually.
Okay. Well, I'll discuss both of them right now because they kind of come together as a pair. The application, if I could have made it, would have been one rezoning for both properties, but they're separately owned. So I had talked to Mr. Steck at length over the last couple of years. I bought this property back in 2004, the vacant tract, the 33474 tract in 2004. And at the time, it had a house on it. And at that time in 2004, we rezoned it from residential to OS2. And the site plan approved at the city was for a bank building that was never built due to an acquisition by that bank. And that site has been on the market now either via the bank when their lease was intact or me personally for plus or minus 10 years with little or no activity. So when I had talked to Mark over the years about this property and rezoning it, just kept running into the obstacle of, I guess, what would be considered a spot zone, so to speak, or zoning it with two OS2 properties adjacent on either side. So I reached out to Mr. Dan Schwar and asked if he had any interest in rezoning his property. I believe he practices his business out of the building adjacent to me, next to the Comerica Bank. And he said he does, and he has signed the application as a property owner interested in rezoning his property. And I believe he has interest in rezoning the property for possible future redevelopment of that property down the road. But I believe he's attending this call and can speak to that if he'd like to. So if I can just kind of join then the properties together, as I mentioned, before you all this evening, consider rezoning the property from OS2, which is small office, to B3. And now in hindsight, I kind of look after reviewing and spending hours and days going through all your zoning ordinances, your codes, and your master plan, realize I probably should have requested to be rezoned B2. The ultimate goal for the property would be a restaurant retail mix, lighter uses. Obviously, than what the B3 is. I read through the B3 permitted uses. There's probably more than 60% of those uses I would not want. And so I'd probably look at it more as a B2. And I would, at the end of this discussion, we'll see if I have any support for even that rezoning of the property, which also would then lend it kind of more to going from B3 to B2 to OS2. Let's see here, hold on one second. So what I wanted to do is Mark, would you mind showing the site plan that I sent you? So the site plan I prepared for the vacant lot, I believe from a preliminary perspective meets all of the setback requirements for either B1, B2, or B3. Shows basically a retail development with / possibility for restaurant, parking, a significant setback from the residential piece, and then addresses, you all have an ordinance that indicates that if you have an access road or a frontage road in a OS2, no setback is needed from the property line. But if you have it in a B district, you can has a 10-foot setback line. So we've tried to address that as well from the positioning of the frontage road. But we can certainly get back to the site plan after I kind of touch on your master plan, and probably the biggest obstacle in getting this parcel rezoned was the master plan. So I guess in overall, I'd like to read some of the highlighted sections of the master plan, starting here at the bottom. You know, the purpose of the master plan is to provide the long-range guide, and I'll emphasize the word guide, for land use development and redevelopment, which best reflects the goals of the community and its residents while promoting the health, safety, and welfare of the people both living and working in Farmington Hills. You know, the two sections I've highlighted at the top, one is suggesting, and again, I'll emphasize the word suggesting, future land use patterns for major uses and indicating the intensity of development. And when we talk about intensity and we're looking at OS2 versus B2 or B3, I don't think there's much more intensity between those two developments or those types of developments. And I'm just going to highlight a few other things, and I'm sure you all have read this before, but I just want to emphasize it for what I'm trying to accomplish. The master plan for future land use is developed to provide guidelines for decisions on how land will be used. I'll emphasize the word guidelines. As such, the plan does not represent final decisions. The plan therefore must be flexible so that it can be changed when the Planning Commission and City Council determine the need for such change. Change is necessary because the plan is based on present goals, knowledge, and technology. And then I almost want to add, and the effects of possible pandemics and other things going on in the world. I'll highlight a few other things that talks about the essential characteristics of the master plan, long-range, comprehensive, and general guide for the development of land, and then a map of future land uses and the supporting documentation describing the details. And if you flip to the next page, I've highlighted a few things as well. Some of these are not applicable as it relates to residential use. I've checked to provide all uses of land necessary to serve the residents of the city. Kind of asterisk to promote the city's economic position by encouraging land uses, which provide a sound tax base. And then the other was to provide adequate circulation system for safe, efficient movement of people, goods within the city. And I asterisk the one about the economic tax base. As I mentioned, this property has now been vacant for more than 15 years. And we've had very little interest in buying or leasing the property in those 15 years. And when word got out that I was attempting to rezone it, we already have received a letter of intent from a local developer that's looking at also developing it from a retail restaurant perspective. So I wanted to kind of touch a little bit on your master plan that you adopted in 2009, which is basically 5 years after I acquired this property and tore down the single family house that was on the property. I tried to contact the firm of Villican, Lemon and Associates that prepared your master plan to get an understanding of how the plan is prepared and how each property was scrutinized. They were unavailable because they're either out of business or no longer exist due to some merger or acquisition, but I could not find the company with that name associated with it. So in preparing a master plan, I don't believe every property is scrutinized at the time they're preparing the master plan. I think it's more of a general overview of how they foresee the city being developed. And I think at the time they developed this master plan, they saw a string of office buildings along this little stretch that were all built in the 1980s. So today that's 40 plus years ago. And then they saw this one vacant tract towards the end, to the east end of this string of office buildings. If the property owned by Mr. Devonshire was vacant at the time, as my property was, it could have probably easily been suggested that that property be zoned B1, B2, or B3, as it is now currently proposed for being zoned OS2. So I want you to kind of appreciate, I think, my position on where that fine line was drawn between the OS2 and the B3 as it relates to the major intersection of Farmington Road and 8 Mile Road, and how that line was delineated and decided by this planning group that put your master plan together. If both his property and my property were vacant, they both probably could have been B3 or a business proposed for their master plan. So what caused them to draw the line there? It's probably because his office building there, and I believe he can address that, but I believe that was built probably in the 1980s. Both 8 Mile and Farmington Road are identified as major thoroughfares in the master plan, which supports commercial development. And I believe the master plan should look at all surrounding properties. And Mark, if you could show that aerial that has that aerial I put together. And if you notice from what's across the street in the city of Livonia, it is a general business designation along the entire kind of southern stretch there of 8 Mile Road. I do appreciate that's not in your city, but I think it comes to show kind of how the uses in other cities along this intersection have been utilized and developed over the years. And I know you're probably more sensitive to the residential development in the back to the north that's in the city than how the city adjacent to you zones their property. But I would also ask that you consider that, you know, this rezoning request goes back to the intensity of zoning. It's certainly not a jump from OS2 to industrial. It's an OS2 to a B3, or possibly, if you'd consider, if I need to put another application in for a B2, which have very similar intensities and can be considered almost a mixed-use development if you have offices that then don't have to get in their car and can go either to a small restaurant or a retail store to get their goods. So I spoke with Joe Tangari yesterday about his rezoning review dated September 8th. And if I may, and I know Mr. Tangari is in presence and he can speak to some of my comments, I just have a few things I wanted to point out in his zoning review. In his zoning review on item number 1, is the proposed zoning consistent with the master plan? And his response was, the existing zoning on 8 Mile Road between Middle Belt and I-275 reflects a gradual decrease in intensity of development as one moves from east to west. So I believe it goes from industrial to B3 to then to OS2, and then it happens to go back to B3 at the next intersection, and then it goes to multifamily residential. So when he refers to his place as continuing west, the plan calls for small office transitioning to multifamily, and then single family west of Founders Park. He says with a commercial note at Gill Road. Well, I think the commercial note at Gill Road is kind of speaks again to how the planning can be viewed as a mixed use kind of zone along that corridor, where you have a combination of B3 and OS2, and possibly rezoning this property to B2, which again, I know is not my application, would kind of reflect that gradual decrease that Mr. Tangari was addressing. Question number 3 is what other impacts would the requested zoning have on public services, utilities, and natural features? His response in the report is, in general, we would expect commercial use to have a somewhat higher demand on infrastructure and services in small office. And Mr. Tangari may be able to address that in further detail, but I would say that impact or demand would be very minor at best between an OS2 and the retail restaurant uses that I'm ultimately trying to accomplish. Number 4, has the applicant provided evidence that the property cannot be developed or used as zone?
I'm not sure if we need to go, I mean, we're gonna have Mr. Tangari go through this report. I don't know if you need to go through every item or the different items on his report. I mean, if there's highlights of it, that's okay, or?
And that's all I'm doing. That's all I'm doing is highlights. I have 2 more points to make.
Okay.
And this one I think is fairly important. Has the applicant provided evidence that the property cannot be developed or used as zoned? He said no. The land is currently undeveloped and virtually identical in size to the OS2 lots in the east and west. I'd remind the board that all of those buildings were built in the 1980s, I believe, both of which are developed in compliance with the ordinance. And I would tell you, I've had the property on the market to sell or lease for 10 plus years, and I've had zero or little interest in doing an OS2 office project on this property. That was kind of the major comments I have. I know you don't want me to go through this whole thing, so I'll stop it there. And then if you want to go, Mark, if you wouldn't mind going to the preliminary site plan. As I identified earlier, this preliminary site plan, I believe, and I know Mark hasn't had time to review it or look at it, so they just recently sent it to him. But I believe it kind of accomplishes most, if not all, of the requirements of the B1, B2, and B3 development requirements that you all have in your zoning districts. So again, I would ask the commission to consider when you talk about intensity of development between a small office building, which has not had any interest in this site for the 10 to 15 years I've owned it, and with the current conditions of the pandemic, how I can provide a development here that would lend itself more towards the services of the local community and the local business scaling it from an OS2 to a business-oriented zoning.
Okay. Mr. Tangeri, can you go over the Giffords-Webster review?
Yes, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Just need to verify. So as was alluded to at the beginning of this conversation, yes, we are looking at two rezonings requests here. They are related. And they're adjacent to each other. So I will go through the letter for zoning request 2-7-2020 at this point, and then when you want me to, I'll go through the one for 3-7-2020 after the public hearing for 2-7. So this, of the two parcels that are being with their rezoning requests tonight, this is the one that's developed. It's the one to the east. It has a small medical office building on it. Both of these parcels are about 0.9 acres. So the zoning now is OS2, as was said. We take a look at the way that the land around it is zoned and used. So to the north, we have RA3 zoning with single family homes. To the east of this parcel, we have B3 and there's a bank there. To the south, we have C2 zoning, and that's in Livonia across 8 Mile, and that's commercial. There's a kind of strip mall type thing there. And then to the west, there's more OS2, and the parcel to the west of this particular parcel is the vacant parcel that's also up for rezoning tonight. The land is designated small office on the future land use map. And what they're proposing to do is rezone the property in question to B3. In the initial application, no proposed use was given. The applicant has spoken to that this evening. The B3 district is intended to accommodate intensive commercial uses. So the OS2 district is intended to accommodate small office uses. Within the OS2 district, the ordinance says in those instances where the Planning Commission finds that an excessive number of ingress or egress points may occur with relation to major or secondary thoroughfares, the Planning Commission may require a marginal access drive to connect sites within the district. So this site has a marginal access drive that's stubbed to the west. There's no marginal access drive stubbed to the east, and the parcel to the east is developed and doesn't have one that's stubbed to this property either. Parcel to the east is zone B3. So per section 34.311, these drives can be required by the Planning Commission in the B3 district. And in the B3 district, a 10-foot setback for the drive is required. So the site has the site does have a driveway directly onto 8 Mile Road. And we do note that because it's not set back 10 feet from the front property line, the existing marginal access drive on that site would become non-conforming if the site were rezoned to B3. When we look at the standards of the OS1 district versus the standards of the B3 district, the front setbacks are different, 120 versus 25, although the 25 feet is a general standard. There's a couple other standards that affect the front setback in the B3 district. The minimum rear setback is 20 feet in both districts, side setback 10 feet in both districts, and the minimum setback from residential is 20 feet in both districts. The maximum building height in OS2 is 34 feet, it's 50 feet in B3. And then the front yard open space standards are different too. OS2 requires 10% and B3 requires 50%. So this moves us to our questions that we ask, anytime that a rezoning comes in front of us. So one is the proposed zoning consistent with the master plan? So master plan designates the site as small office on the future land use map. That's consistent with the current zoning. Overall, the master plan and existing zoning for 8 Mile Road between Middle Belt and I-275 do reflect that gradual decrease in intensity of development from east to west that was referred to earlier by the applicant. The portion of this area that's in Farmington Hills, from Orchard Lake Road along 8 Mile into the city of Farmington, development is mostly industrial, and the portion of the area that's in Farmington Hills is designated as part of the Southeast Business and Industrial Redevelopment Area. The master plan envisions an expanded range of uses for that area, but generally sees it as continuing to be industrial or heavy commercial. So within the city of Farmington, industrial uses transition to commercial at the intersection with Farmington Road, and that's mirrored on the Farmington hillside. And then the two proposed rezoning parcels are situated just to the west of that commercial node. So continuing west, the plan calls for that small office. There's that commercial node at Gill, and then it transitions to multifamily. You have Founders Park, and then it's single family. And we included all the zoning maps in the for the surrounding communities in your letter too, as well as an excerpt of the future land use map with some of that stuff labeled for you. So what other impact is the second question is what other impact would the requested zoning have on public services, utilities, and natural features? And, you know, generally we would expect commercial uses to have a somewhat higher demand on infrastructure and services than small office uses. Generally, it's a little more consistent throughout the day as opposed to an office use where you might have more of a people arrive in the morning, people leave in the evening, that type of use. Question number 3, has the applicant provided evidence that the property cannot be developed or used as zoned? In particular for this parcel, it is developed as zoned with a small multi-tenant office building. It's hosted both medical and professional offices. Appears to be mostly medical right now. Medical and professional offices are permitted uses in both the current and the requested district. Question 4, is the proposed zoning district and potential land uses compatible with surrounding uses? So in general, the small office oriented districts, that's OS1 and OS2 in your zoning ordinance, are considered to be transitional or buffer uses to single family districts. The B3 district is oriented toward heavier commercial uses. Drive-through uses are prohibited in B3 on properties abutting an RA district. The planning, so this property couldn't host a drive-through use, just so everyone's aware. And I do think the applicant's aware of that. The Planning Commission may wish to consider the potential impact of retail traffic on an office marginal access drive if the rezoning is approved. In the broader context of the 8 Mile Road corridor, the Farmington 8 Mile intersection is a commercial node, and east of that is primarily industrial to Middle Belt Road. West of those sites, small office uses continue to Gill Road. You have that commercial node before the transition to multifamily. And you know, you can see the zoning maps for the surrounding communities there as well in our letter. So question 5, will the proposed zoning place a burden on nearby thoroughfares? If so, how would this burden compare with the existing zoning district? So while commercial uses generally are associated with higher traffic volumes and office uses, 8 Mile is a regional roadway. It's very likely, particularly on a site this size, it's very likely to absorb any difference in traffic. Is there any other land currently available for this use is question number 6. The city does have undeveloped land zone B3. Most of that is not in this area, but there is other land zone B3. Question 7, will development of the site under proposed zoning be able to meet zoning district requirements? So when this letter was written, we didn't have any conceptual plan. So we said in the absence of a plan, it appears it would be possible for appropriately scaled development on the site to meet the requirements of the ordinance. Due to the fact that the property abuts RA zoning to the north, you couldn't have the drive-through use. But now we do have that conceptual plan, which can be discussed once we're past this portion of the presentation. Question 8, is rezoning the best way to address the request, or could the existing zoning district be amended to add the proposed use as a permitted or special land use? A specific use wasn't requested at the time of the application. The site's currently developed with the use it's permitted as zoned. You know, we've been told this evening via that conceptual plan that small retail or restaurant would be the desired use for the property. And in general, that's not really what the small office district is for, so we wouldn't usually contemplate adding that to the small office district. Question 9, has there been a change in circumstances and conditions since adoption of the master plan that would support the proposed change? And the area is pretty substantially similar to its state when the last master plan was adopted. And then finally, question 10 deals with the issue of spot zoning, which is the process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding area for the benefit of a single property owner and to the detriment of others. And that comes from Rogers v. Village of Terrytown. And then there's a 3-question test that also comes from that case. So the first question being, is the rezoning request consistent with the master plan for the area? And the master plan for the area designates the land for small office. That's consistent with the current zoning. Is the proposed zoning district a logical extension of an existing zoning district in the area? This parcel would be adjacent to neighboring B3 zoning. Parcel directly to the west is also requesting the same rezoning to B3. And then across 8 Mile, you've got the C2 general business district. And then the final question there is, would approving the request grant a special benefit to a property owner or developer? And our response to that here is that the rezoning would expand the range of uses available for the property. It's unclear whether there's any imminent plan for redevelopment that would be forthcoming for this particular parcel if the rezoning were granted. I don't think there is, based on the information we have in front of us. This would likely continue as an office for the foreseeable future, but other uses would be available on it than what's currently available now. So just if the planning commissioners have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Hey, Mr. Orr?
Actually, I think Mr. Schwartz was first.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you. It struck me listening to the 2 presentations that this is the cart before the horse. And I think when we go to vote, it would make more sense that we vote on the vacant parcel. So we might have to temporarily table this or postpone this till we vote on the vacant parcel. As Mr. Brickner pointed out, when this first was introduced to us, when we had to just set a date for this hearing, that the developed parcel is being requested because otherwise it would be to be changed. Otherwise, the vacant parcel would be spot zoning. So it seems to me that it wouldn't make sense to have the vacant lot recommended to be rezoned and not the developed lot. By the same token, it wouldn't make any sense at all for the proponent to have the developed lot rezoned, but not the vacant lot, because he's seeking relief on the vacant lot because he says he can't develop an office building. So I think when we get to the point of voting, we ought to vote on the vacant lot first, even though that's the second item on the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Orr?
To answer that, well, if we pass the vacant lot, not the other, then we've done spot zoning. So I'll let that go for now. First off, I'd like to apologize for my comments last month about the 50% open yard in this project. I went back with a magnifying glass and zoom on my computer and was able to determine that this would comply. I apologize for those comments. In that same vein, is it the planning commission rather than the engineering department that has discretion over these marginal access drives?
Per the ordinance, yes.
can the engineering department override us if we should choose not to require a marginal access drive?
I'm going to lean a little bit on Mr. Steck for the answer to this question. Mark, in your experience, has engineering ever required a marginal access drive that was not required by the planning? I know they push for it. I know they always advocate for it.
They like to limit curb cuts. I know that. And
Yes.
that's where I think that their authority would come in.
I think they probably have the authority to do it under other auspices. But
All right,
the
well,
planning
let me-
commission also has the authority, I guess, at the site plan level.
Because I can see rezoning this if we can have a site plan that doesn't require any variances. And if we don't have a marginal access drive, then the vacant parcel wouldn't need marginal access drives. I apologize for bringing both of these together, but that is the discussion.
Mhm.
And so if we can get by and say that there is a possibility of having a marginal access drive in the first 25 feet of the property and still having 50% or we are unable, if we can get the 50% open space in the front yard and still have a comply, this seems like a viable project. But if we have to have a marginal access drive that has to have a zoning variance, that doesn't seem like a good way to go to me.
Sure.
So I'm looking for a way to accommodate this applicant and still comply with all of our zoning regulations in the future.
Sure. It's points well taken. And I think I do have to point out that the site to the west does not have a driveway directly to 8 Mile Road, and appears to have been developed with the idea that a marginal access drive would continue across in the future. There are a couple of parcels to the west actually that don't have driveways directly onto 8 Mile Road.
Excuse me, I'm looking at what appears to be a gray line from the property line out to the street there.
Further west.
Oh,
Right there.
yeah, what you're seeing is the old driveway for the house.
I
I'm
understand
talking about the
that.
property to the west of the property to the west, not the vacant one, but the one
Okay,
to the
the next
west of
one.
the vacant one. Sorry
Okay.
for the confusion. Sorry for the confusion. There's a lot of stuff in play here.
But they do have access to the property from further east, further west yet.
That's true.
So-
They do have access from further west. However, there's no driveway on the next two properties to the west of the vacant parcel. You've got the one
Yeah,
access into a lot of parcels.
but I'm saying that the vacant parcel that is under discussion tonight could possibly have an access to 8 Mile Road directly and not have a marginal access drive. And so everything could comply with the zoning of the B3.
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Secondly, while I have the chair's permission, B2 would be spot zoning for the applicant's information, in my mind. Thank you very much to the chair.
If I could, through the chair, I apologize. This is Mark Steck. I didn't realize I was muted. If I could comment on the marginal access drive
Yeah, go ahead.
requirement. Okay, so in the B3 district, it's under section 3.11, which Joe Tangari referenced. It says that all uses shall be subject to the conditions of section 3.22, which gets us to the marginal access drive. What with the difference of the 10-foot setback. Section 3.22 says that uses in the OS2 and the B4 districts may be subject to the following conditions. So that means, which means, requiring the access drive. So that means the planning commission does have the discretion to, at the point of site plan, not now certainly, but if they were to come for a site plan, the planning commission does, my reading of this, does have the authority to require or not require. It's a discretionary decision about the marginal, to require or not require the marginal access drives. Considering that there is already the easements on either end, the other parcels have already developed those marginal access drives. It would, it was intended that there would be there, but yes, the planning commission does have the discretion on requiring or not requiring the marginal access drives.
And
Thank you very much, Mark.
Am I allowed, this is Hans Kuhlman, am I allowed to speak now or do I need to?
Well, let us get through the commissioner comments first, and then I'm gonna
Okay.
open it up for public comment.
Okay,
Any, Mr. Brickner?
Yeah, I was, is the owner of the lot that's already developed, is he on? 'Cause my question
Yeah,
is,
this is Michael Danishvar. Yes, sir, I'm here.
okay, and is your building filled or is it partially vacant?
Well, that's the problem. I like to talk about the building. I had similar building in Dearborn, and I moved. I'm a doctor. I did practice in Dearborn, and this Farmington building was vacant almost for 10 years. And finally, I gave up finding a tenant in there. I closed my practice in Dearborn because it was much easier to find a tenant in Dearborn, and I moved to Farmington. Still half of the building is empty. It has been empty for a long time. I really do welcome this changing the zone, and I think it's gonna benefit everybody.
Well, are you planning on tearing your building down and building a new one, or are you just gonna leave the
Not-
same thing you got there?
Not now, but I'd like to have the opportunity in future that maybe we do the same, turn and I welcome the changing to the B3 or B2.
Yeah, I go along with what Mr. Orr said, that I can see the B3, but a B2 would be spot zoning where I come from.
This lot right next to me has been vacant for almost 15, 16 years. I remember when there was an old house, they demolished, and then it went to the bank. The bank didn't build it. Now it has been vacant for a long time. I don't think it's going to be a good future for any kind of a small office building with so much buildings empty in Farmington, Livonia, and surrounding area. And changing this to rezoning is benefit everybody, including the city.
Okay. Mr. McRae?
Yeah, I actually have a question for Council, Mr. Schultz, if I may.
Yep.
So to Mr. Schwartz's earlier point about the order of taking these, is it possible or is it legal? I feel like there's some level of tie bar that needs to happen between these two votes. Is it possible to have a scenario hypothetically on the 2-7 that approve if and only if the other request passes, or vice versa? I'm just curious about the order of these things and whether they can actually be linked together, because obviously we don't want spot zoning on 3-7, but I don't know that we haven't really heard the compelling argument to change 2-7 yet. We've only talked about the empty property. So I just feel like, I want to make sure that we're doing this in the right order, but I also want to make sure that there's a logic to it. I mean, the points last month about looking at this area in whole is a good one. And this is an attempt to do that and looking at these two together. So that's a long-winded question, I guess, but Mr. Schultz?
So yeah, through the chair, I think Mr. Schwartz's suggestion is a good one. I think you're permitted to take the action in whatever order you want, with the chair's approval, and I think that's fine.
But my question was about.
Yep, I'm getting there.
Okay, go ahead.
And I guess I also just want to, confirm that what you're doing is a recommendation to City Council, who can, obviously legislate in a way that they're clearly tie barred. So yeah, if your motion, if you determine that 3 should be rezoned, but only because you're also recommending 2, there's nothing wrong with having your motion say exactly that.
Okay. And to my mind, unless I hear compelling argument this evening, we haven't really talked about what happens if 2, but not 3. So
Sure. Right.
I guess we get to wait and hear how this all works out. So thank you for that.
But yeah,
Appreciate it.
you have a lot of latitude with your recommendation motion.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brickner, are you raising your hand again?
Yeah, I think I go along with Mr. Orr on this one. I would rather do the 2 first and then the 3, so we're doing things in a proper order. We don't end up spot zoning one and not the other. And I also agree with Mr. McCray that they should be tie barred. They both have to change. You can't go one and not the other. But the other question we kind of been dodging, or we didn't really deal with, is the proponent is thinking now he wants to change it to a B2, which would, to me, if they change both of them to B2, they would both be spot zones. And I don't know if he wants to withdraw his request and try to zone it something else. But if he tries to zone it something that's not a B3 compatible with the properties to the east, to me, that would be spot zoning. So I don't know what he wants to do, because we can't just vote on something he didn't prepare until today, and we have to. This is a public hearing. How can the public properly react to something if it was just dropped in their lap like in our lap today? That's my question.
Through the chair, it's B3 or renotice. So you're only acting on the B3 tonight.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments or questions? Okay, I will open up the public hearing portion of this. Is there anyone who would wish to speak? And if so, please give your name and street. And there's a 2-minute limit unless you're speaking as a group, in which case there's a 4-minute limit. Is there?
Chair Stimson, I don't see any hands raised.
No? We'll give another minute or another few seconds here.
Mr. Chair, while you're waiting, if I can make a comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Orr.
Many years ago, I was remodeling a house, and every day about 2 o'clock, the house filled with the smell of curry. And if I was a neighbor here in this neighborhood and a restaurant that used curry in its menu was to go there, I'd have to move, just to let you know, just to waste time.
Okay, still no one raised their hand, so I will close the.
Can the proponent,
Well, let me close the public hearing and then we'll come back to you. So I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this, and yes, if you, Mr. Coleman, if you have comments.
Yeah, my comments would really be, and I don't know who on this call would be able to give a little insight into the true definition of spot zoning, but I've heard a couple of different comments about spot zoning. And when I read the report that the review that Mr. Tangari put together, he defines spot zoning, the process of singling out a small parcel of land for a use classification totally different from that of the surrounding area for the benefit of a single property owner and to the detriment of others. Now, I don't know if B2 is totally different than OS2. I don't know if B3 is totally different than OS2. I don't believe either are, for my definition. And I don't believe the rezoning would be different than what is zoned in the surrounding area based off of what you have directly to the east with the Comerica Bank and what you have on the other side of 8 Mile Drive. So I don't know if anyone's on this call that can answer that and clarify that definition for us further.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Mr. Orr.
I think we have a proposal here to vote on a B3, and if we're going to vote on it, that'd be a thing to do. I don't think we ought to discuss B2 anymore tonight.
I would agree. Okay. Do we have any questions from the commission for the proponent? I see one hand raised under attendees. Oh.
Stimson, are you going to allow the public to speak on it? You have closed.
I have closed it, so we'll be having another public portion in the next one as well. Mr. Schwartz?
Sorry, I was ready to make a motion, but if somebody from the public wants to speak, I think you ought to let them speak before me.
Do I have a motion to reopen the public hearing then?
So moved.
Support.
Okay. Can you take roll call to reopen the public hearing? Ms. McGuire?
Yes, so I'm sorry, that motion was by,
Or,
Mr. Orr, supported by Mr. Schwartz?
thank you. Commissioner Conagan,
yes.
Manti,
Yes.
McRae,
Yes.
Orr,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Treflet, Commissioner Treflet,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Brickner,
Yes.
Chair Simpson.
Yes. Okay, so we have a member of the public. If you can give your name and street and ask your question or make your comment, please.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Ross. I'm on Goldsmith Street in Farmington Hills.
Okay.
Hello, thank you. I'm new to Farmington Hills and I'm excited to be and honored to be part of the community. I have some concerns about the type of zoning that is going on in this area. I have concerns that resale shops and CBD distribution will be allowed in this new rezoning. We already have at that area the Family Video that sells CBD, and I would not like to see more businesses that sell that. There's statistically an increase communities, the more that they allow CBD shops and resale shops, the more crime that's in that community. That is my concern as a resident of the area. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other, well, we've got the public hearing open. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, I will reclose the public hearing. Any other comments from either the proponent on that or from the commission? Okay. Any motions?
Yeah, I have a motion.
Go ahead, Mr. Schwartz.
So the address of the developed property is 33466.
Correct.
Okay, that's the one we had before. So I have really struggled with this. I drove past it again this afternoon. Let me give my rationale for my motion first before the motion. So as a lawyer up until March, I always, for 35 years, I always practiced out of an office, and it would have been inconceivable for me to practice other than in an office. Since March, I've had absolutely no problem practicing from my house. And if I were much younger, I would not think about going back into an office, because why pay rent? I think the marketplace for office, small office, as a result of people changing their behavior, even after once they've been through the pandemic, it is not going to be great. And so there will still be a need for medical offices, dental offices, physical therapy offices, where people have to put their hands on other people. But for insurance, law, other kinds of services, I think the demand for small offices is probably going to diminish. I mean, who knows? The other thing I thought of was troubling me is where do we draw a line if we don't draw a line, keep the line where it is? But I don't think the existing offices, those buildings all seem to be in good repair. But if gradually the buildings that are now OS2 start getting rezoned to B3 so that it's a solid B3 from Farmington to Gill Road, I don't see that being a major problem. I don't think it's going to change the traffic. I don't think it's going to change the crime. I'm not going to get into marijuana because I don't want to get into that debate. You know where I stand on that. But I think the more likely development for this kind of parcels is probably another Tim Hortons or that kind of place. The owner said he's been trying to develop this land for 15 years and there's not a market. And we heard the doctor say he can't fill his building up. So for those reasons, I will recommend it to the city council that 33466 8 Mile be rezoned to B3, provided the planning commission also recommends to the city council that the other parcel at 33474 8 Mile also be rezoned to B3.
Do we have I think you have to select one of the following reasons, Mr. Schwartz.
I'm missing my cheat sheet. So whoever, if anybody's going to second this, throw in a reason and I'll agree to that. If
Mr.
nobody
Chair, I
says-
would second that motion in that this is a reasonable alternative to the master plan to promote the land use policies of the master plan, would not conflict with the present policies.
I'll accept it. As part of my motion.
Any discussion on this? Okay.
I just want to say that I agree somewhat with what Mr. Schwartz says, but also being in the legal business, do you want your clients to know where you live? That's the question.
No, they don't know where I live. My office is 3 inches by 4 inches.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to meet clients, and so you have to meet them someplace. That's
not been,
irrelevant.
Barry, that has not been a problem for other people. It won't work. My point was, I think the pandemic and the generational change of how younger people work, there's likely to be less demand for small office than when some of these properties on 8 Mile were developed. That's my only point. Okay. What I'm doing won't work for every lawyer. I understand that. Okay.
We can talk about this separately and not on city time. But,
No, my
Just
point
an-
is
just an
that the
observation, yeah.
marketplace has changed.
that is correct.
If the marketplace hadn't changed, I would not be making this motion. I'd be going the other way.
Okay, well, I guess my comment is, I'm not real comfortable with the B3 and the height change going from 2 to 3 stories close to residential. So I'll be voting against it. So that's my comment. Any others? Okay. Ms. McGuire, will you take roll?
We'll start with Commissioner Manti,
Aye.
McRae,
Yes,
Orr,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Brickner,
Yes.
let's see, Trufflet,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Conigan,
Yes.
and Chair Stimson.
Nay.
So the motion carries.
Okay. Okay, we are on to, where did my agenda go? Item B in the public hearing, the rezoning request of rezoning request 3-7-2020. The location is 334748 8 Mile Road. Proposals is to rezone a parcel currently zoned OS2, Planned Office District, to B3. General Business District. Action requested is a recommendation to City Council, and the applicant is Han Coleman. Mr. Coleman, I don't know if you want more comments or if we can quickly jump into the clear zoning, or not the clear zoning, the Giffords-Webster review. Mr. Coleman?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I would just go ahead and have the Giffords-Webster,
Okay,
have Mr. Tangari get into his report.
yep. Go ahead, Mr. Tangari.
Okay, thank you. So the comments on this one are fairly similar to the comments on the other one, so I won't go into quite as much detail. But I will highlight a couple of the differences. Obviously, this is the second parcel, which is not directly adjacent to the B3. And it's the same basic size as the other parcel. It's that 0.9 acres roughly. And it also has, the single family to the north and similar surroundings, except that the office is to the east. Designated small office on the future land use map, just like the other one. So on this property, what we noted was that it doesn't have the marginal access drive, and if one were to be required in the B3 district, the challenge would be aligning it with the neighboring marginal access drive. The conceptual plan that was shown earlier showed a reconstruction of the marginal access drive to the east to line up with this property, and then kind of a jog on this property west. But the 10-foot setback would apply to this property if a marginal access drive were constructed. Our comments about the gradual decrease in intensity are the same for this property. Are obviously contrasting the differences between the two districts as well. Same comments about the commercial uses versus small office uses. In this case, the question number 4 is the applicant provided evidence that the property cannot be developed or used as zoned. Per the application, no. He has discussed that a little bit tonight in terms of his attempts to market the property over time. The land is currently undeveloped. It's virtually identical in size to the OS2 lots to the east and west, and those are both developed in compliance with ordinance standards. Is the proposed zoning district compatible with surrounding uses? Our comments there are essentially the same as for the other property. B3 being oriented toward heavier commercial uses. Same comments on the burden on nearby thoroughfares. Same comment on other land available for the use. Under number 8, will development of the site under proposed zoning be able to meet zoning district requirements? So we didn't have a plan at the time of writing this letter. It appears that it would be possible for appropriately scaled development on the site to meet the requirements of the ordinance. And again, that note about drive-through uses not being available. Number 9 is rezoning the best way to address the request. Same comment as last time. We didn't have a specific use to compare it against. And then number 10, Same comment as last time. Area is substantially similar to when the master plan was adopted. And then the spot zoning question is a little bit different in this case because it is the westernmost of the two properties. So the parcel would be separated from B3 zoning by one other OS2 parcel to the east, which is of course also requesting rezoning. It was just a motion to recommend rezoning to B3 on that parcel. And that's essentially, I mean, the very similar comments to the other property. It's just the difference is that this one is removed by one parcel and it's not developed yet. So any questions on this one for me?
Through the chair, this is Mark Steck, staff planner. I'd like to make one comment if I could.
Go ahead, Mark.
Just kind of looking, I know we already established, considering you guys had already discussed possibility of like downzoning to the B2, and we have already established that that's something we should not be discussing. But I did want to just point this out as I'm looking through these about the B4 district. If you look at the B4 district, if you're considering these rezonings, and maybe the applicant may want to consider this, is in the B4 district has the same setback requirements as the OS2 district. Okay, so when you're looking at this proposed site plan, another thing you can see is that this building sticks out like a kind of like a tooth here further than the other ones. But where the B4 has the same setback requirements as the OS2, which would create a buildings that would be in line with this. And not only that, as I've already mentioned, that the B4 district ties into the OS2 into the marginal access drives as well, where it doesn't have this 10-foot requirement, and that marginal access drives could be continued in the B4 district. So I know we've already established you didn't want to talk about other zoning districts, but I wanted to just say that and have that put out there as you're considering this. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Orr?
How is that not spot zoning, Mark?
I'm not saying it's not you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You made a determination that the B3 was a reasonable alternative. I'm just saying that. I just wanted to point out the similarities from the B4, but I'm not saying that would not be a spot zoning. It's not something that I've thoroughly digested, but I was just looking through the ordinances there and noticed that, so.
As far as I'm concerned, at least you have B3 you're tying into to the east. B4 doesn't exist. It'd be the same thing if you went to B2, it'd be spot zoning.
Understood.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? No? Okay, I will open up the public hearing portion of this item. If anyone would wish to speak, raise your hand on Zoom. Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public comment. Mr. Schwartz?
I think Mr. Orr had his hand up before me.
I think he had left his hand up.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I move that we recommend the city council approving a rezoning request 2/7 of 2020, petition by Hans Coleman to rezone the property located on 8 Mile from OS2 to B3. I don't have the address of that property, and because the change is consistent with the master plan, be compatible with the existing future uses, but not have a negative impact on policies and goals of the master plan.
Question for Mr. Orr, did you say 2-7 or 3-7?
I meant to say 3-7. I did have it here, and I do have the address. It's 33474. Thank you very much for correcting me.
Yep.
And that's going to be tie barred into that's conditional upon the.
We've already done the other one, as long as this was approved.
No, I'm saying if the city council doesn't approve 2-7-2020, you can't do 3-7-2020.
I'll let them make their own decisions on that.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll support it, but I think the motion should parallel the first one and that it's a reasonable alternative to the master plan.
Okay, fine.
But I'm saying that I don't think we should be sending it up to the council without tie barring it, as Mr. McCray said before, to 2-7-2020, because if the city council denies 2-7-2020, then you do have a spot zone problem.
So I
So
think
one has to go with three has to go with two.
But city council could separate them if they wanted to anyways. I mean, it's a recommendation. But
Well,
I think that I would agree with Mr. Brickner that our recommendation should have the language specifically in there.
Council, please.
I agree, Duke. I think.
All right, thank you very much. We'll add that language in the motion, please.
Okay, Mr. Schwartz, you accept?
yes, I agree with that. I
Okay,
was going to say that, so thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
any other discussion? Okay, Ms. McGuire, can you take roll?
Commissioner McRae,
Yes, and I have a comment at the end if you're with me, please.
Orr,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Trufflet,
Yes.
Turner,
Your phone.
Commissioner Turner, Commissioner Turner, if you would unmute your phone, there you go.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Brickner,
Yes.
Conigan,
Yes.
Mantee,
Aye.
and Chair Stimson.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could I ask
Mr. McCray.
through the chair that Mr. Steck and or Mr. Tangari address, if possible, the comments made by the resident as far as types of businesses that would be appropriate there and what the city's regulation of CBD facilities is?
Certainly. The CBD facilities are not, the CBD is not something that's covered by it's not a marijuana type use. And so that is something that any retailer, as you can see throughout the community, gas stations, there could be a retail store there selling CBD. Marijuana dispensaries, recreational or medicinal, are not permitted at this time in the city. But if they are to be permitted at some time in the future, they would likely be in the B3, one of the, B3, B2, B4 type districts. So, and then, because they would just be, I can't speculate onto how they would be regulated, to be honest with you, but as of right now, they couldn't, they would not be able to be a marijuana business there. But other than that, any of the uses, unknown as far as some of have any special conditions, like we've already established that, a drive-through use would not be able to go there. So other than
Right.
that, pretty much any kind of retail, or the B3 is basically the most inclusive commercial zoning district we have in the community.
And could you also just speak to the size of the building and the size, that height? I don't know that
Yeah.
is realistic to go
yeah.
to 3 stories in this level.
Now, what you can do by having the B3 zoning district, where in the OS2 district, as you recall, we did slightly allow for increases in the zoning district, but we allowed in the OS2 district to be up to 34 feet. I can't recall off the top of my head what it was before that now already, but in the B3 district now, a building up to 50 feet tall could be built, and building up to 50 feet tall could be built here with a maximum of 3 stories with we'll have no control over that.
Right, but there are setback requirements and such that would come in
There are
place still.
setback requirements and things like that too. So we'll,
In parking, there wouldn't be
Yeah,
enough
park.
there's
Right.
there's a little bit of site limitations, but I guess the simple answer is they could potentially go up to 50 feet.
Right. My point is that based on the size of the property and the setback requirements and the parking, the practicality and the economic likelihood of a 3-story building being viable there is is limited at best, I would think.
Sure. I mean, not a real.
It's just my statement. That doesn't mean it's right.
Okay.
It's just,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that that's my belief, but I could be proven wrong later.
Okay. Well, that ends the public hearing portion of the meeting. Onto the regular meeting. We'll 5A lot split 3-2020. The location is 21050 Goldsmith. The proposal is to split one parcel into two parcels in an RA1 one family residential district. The action requested is a preliminary lot split approval, and the applicant is Richard Bringardner. Can we hear from Giffords Webster, please?
Yes, thank you. So yes, we are looking at 21050 Goldsmith Street, and they are requesting to split this site into two lots. If you read our letter, you'll note that the dimensional standards of the zoning ordinance and the Land Division Act are met. However, you received a letter from your council earlier this week that noted that this property does not have the available splits to be split at this time. And based on the information that's available to us, we agree with that assessment. Now, we cannot give you legal advice. That is for your attorney to do. So I'll defer to him on any legal questions. But as such, we do not find that this property is splittable at this time. So that's, I'm not going to read our letter because that's kind of the extent of the comments that I feel like we need to make at the moment. But if you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Tangeri at this time?
What about I'm sorry, what about if would Mr. Schultz be the one we should be asking the questions to?
Well, what I was going to do is ask to hear from the proponent, and then I'm sure Mr. Schultz will have some comments after that.
Thank you.
Yep. So can we hear from the proponent, please?
Have I been unmuted?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Rick Bringardner, and I'm the applicant and resident of Goldsmith. I've been a resident of Farmington Hills for 32 years. And I put the original development in that you can see if you look at the site plan. The Teal Court development is my site plan that goes back to 1993, where I brought the 1,000 foot of sewer in from 8 Mile at a substantial amount of expense, and developed 5 lots on Teal Court, and sold those lots off to each of the people to develop their own homes. Subsequently, after 93, my sewer that I put in, that 1,000 foot from 8 Mile, has since to date supported 25 additional homes for sanitary sewer. So I feel like over the past 32 years that I've been a resident, I've done quite a bit to help my community, my neighborhood, through my small development. And so I'm coming to you tonight to ask that you reconsider the attorney's position. And I'll be turning my presentation over to my attorney, Mr. Philip Deloach, in about 2 minutes. But I wanted you to get to know me as a person rather than just as an applicant. I've been considering this lot split since 1999. And we've had various people in the city, including engineers, and in fact, the independent consultant that did his report. And Mr. Deloach will be addressing the comments that he made in his first report before he received his letter. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm an individual, been here for a long time and not going anywhere. And I would like to turn again, as I mentioned, the rest of the presentation over to my attorney, Mr. Philip Deloach. Would you please recognize Mr. Deloach?
Yep, Mr. Deloach.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Philip Deloach on behalf of Richard Bringardner. I've got three main items to discuss with everyone tonight. The first one is going to be first and foremost to address the city attorney's letter and his rationale for why he thinks we've already reached our 4 splits. And then I'll try to go into a little bit of the Land Division Act itself and give you a brief interpretation. I don't know if the commission has a copy of my package that I provided. It was sent in yesterday.
Yep.
If so, it's got an article and you guys can follow along on that. If not, I can provide it
Yeah.
certainly after the fact.
Yeah, we did receive it.
Okay. And then third, I can address the engineering requirements on a letter from Mr. Kubera's department if we get that far. As a matter of just procedure, if the commission wants to take a pause after I address the first 2 points for a response by the city attorney, that's fine too. The engineering requirements are really not anything to do with this lot split issue. So let me jump right into the decision, GMS Dev Holding versus Bloomfield Township that's cited by your council. And so your council is using this to indicate that Section 263 is the section that is going to govern of the Land Division Act. Now, Section 263 states that a platted parcel of land, I'm paraphrasing here, has maybe approved up to 4 divisions by a municipal ordinance. But I want to take a look at the case that is cited and how we get there, because this area of law is particularly absent with precedent. We're dealing with unpublished opinions on really both sides of the aisle. I've got one published opinion from the Michigan Supreme Court. As your counsel points out, it doesn't quite address the whole of the issue, but it is cited by the case that I'm using. And so really, I want to tell you why I think you should use my case rather than his case. Both of them are unpublished. So just for everyone who's not an attorney, an unpublished case is not precedent. It's not binding on a court. So if we were to go to court on this matter, the unpublished opinion would not bind the court that we're in front of. So they wouldn't have to follow that. They could do what they wanted. But let's look at the facts. In this federal court decision, now federal court decision is important on its own. It's in the Eastern District of Michigan, not under a state court. And even if this opinion was published, the federal court is not going to be binding on the state courts because it's not the United States Supreme Court. It's merely a district court. So this deals with an applicant who was before their board, and they had a harmony and density issue. So the argument was the lot split would change the proposed harmony and character of the neighborhood, okay? And so they denied it, and so he sued. He went to court, and the court here, this federal court defines the word division. And they are trying to define the word division, and they're using all sorts of things to do that. They are looking to legislative history, and let me step back. Why are they defining division? Well, because the applicant says there's actually 3 sections that govern, 108, 109, and the 263, again, that your counsel is saying is exclusively binding here. 108 and 109 give a little bit of leeway. They have 108 sets forth what are basically the acreage and width requirements for a lot that's going to be split. And 109 has all of the other requirements, and you have to meet both of those in order to not be subject to the platting requirements. So we're talking about divisions in this case, and they are looking to this legislative history, and the division is the thing that they're focusing on, right? Well, the thing that we're focusing on is the definition of a parent parcel. This court says, because we can't really define division, and the reason they say they can't define that word is because even though there's a definitions section of this statute, the word division in its definition references section 108 and 109. And so they say this is circular reasoning. So we should ignore completely the definitions section of the statute and give division a different meaning that we say is the plain language meaning, and then move on to section 263, because that really is talking about divisions of platted land. Okay, so I don't like this reasoning. I'd much prefer the reasoning in a court case that I provided to you called For the Kids LLC versus Chesterfield Township. That's much more analogous to our case. There we're dealing with a platted parcel. The applicant had lot 9 of supervisors sub 11. We have lot 19. Rick Bringardner has lot 19 of supervisors sub 8. So dealing with a platted parcel. And there, the argument was almost identical to your city council's argument. And that argument was section 263 here is going to govern, and a parent parcel is only the parent parcel as of the date of platting. Lot 19 is the parent parcel. And as he pointed out in his letter, a lot 19, which comprises, you can see on your screen there, the part labeled lot split in the 3 areas to the left of it, right above the word Teal Court, that's lot 19. And that, sorry?
That was to the right of it, not to the left.
Oh, to the right, excuse me. You're correct, to the right of that, exactly. Those 3 areas there and the 21050 Goldsmith. So that's what Chesterfield Township argued. The court in this case says, well, hang on. Let's define parent parcel, because we have a definition section of the Land Division Act. And the court ended up holding with the applicant because they found the language for parent parcel was clear and unambiguous. And they have it having defined in the site as MCL 560-102I. So the definition section is 102. And it's a parent parcel is a parcel or tract lawfully in existence on March 31st, 1997. And just like in this case, the parent parcel of the Chesterfield Township case was split previous to 1997. And it was actually split more than 4 times, where Rick has 4 splits here. That one was split 13 times. And so they said, well, hang on, you've got 13 splits. You can't possibly split this again. And the applicant said, no, you're measuring the parent parcel incorrectly. The parent parcel is my parcel. It's the 21050 Goldsmith of this case. That's how you should determine what it is, because the city never argued, or in that case, the township never argued that my parent parcel was not lawfully in existence. It wasn't illegal. And that's what we have here. We have a lawfully existing parcel, 21050 Goldsmith. As of 1997, that's how it existed. That parcel itself has never been split. And that's what this court at Chesterfield Township, which is a state court. And by the way, this court case was appealed by Chesterfield Township. It was upheld on appeal. And that court found the language is unambiguous. It's easy to get to that definition. We don't have to go through a convoluted discussion about the definition of division and decide that because a definition section, mentions 108 and 109, and that term is also mentioned in 108 and 109, that somehow that can't possibly be. And then jump over to legislative history and look through the notes of the legislature, which they, by the way, they don't really provide. Maybe they did somewhere, but it's not in the record. This is easy. This is clear. This is unambiguous. A parent parcel is a lot lawfully in existence as of March 31st, 1997. So why does this matter? Well, the article that I would really encourage everybody to turn to, I think it's page 23 in my packet, but it's It's titled Dividing Platted Parcels. Now, of course, this is merely an article. It's not binding on you, but we don't have anything binding here. So I'm trying to give you the best narrative I could find, and this is a really good one. Let's talk about why 263 could exist. And just to go back to the court in GMS, they said that the reason they had to use this convoluted definition of division was that anything else rendered section 263 meaningless. And so to preserve the integrity of the statute, they had to find a way to make that part not meaningless. And that's the best they could come up with. Now, I will say that case was also appealed. And I have a feeling that the reason it was in federal court here is because the applicant in that case decided that they were going to go after their federal constitutional rights. And the appellate court there, they even say, look, the parties have engaged in a lengthy analysis about Michigan's Land Division Act and whether that preempts the ordinance and whether the township's allowed to do this. And we don't really care about that. They said, look, this is simply a dispute about which the federal constitution has nothing to do. And they ruled for the city. That's why that guy lost. But for the kids, they won. Now, why did they win? Okay, 263. How should we interpret it? How is it not meaningless? How does it make sense in conjunction with 108 and 109? Well, I'm reading straight from this article. It's going to be page 193 on that article. Again, 23-ish on your PDF if you have it. So, and actually, let me just go to 263 for you. Okay. So, no lot, outlot, or other parcel of land in a recorded plat should be further partitioned or divided unless in conformity with the ordinances of the municipality. The municipality may permit the partitioning or dividing of lots, outlots, other parcels into not more than 4 parts. So this means the municipality can pass an ordinance that allows a division of a land into not more than 4 parts. Well, why does that matter? If we have 108 that says how many times you can divide things, and we have 109 that says, well, here's your acreage requirements, we should be good, right? Why do we need 263 if what your counsel telling you is not true, which is that you should use this for platted land exclusively, and unplatted land is under the other? Well, it's because 263 entertains the instance where a division can comply with that municipal ordinance that allows 4 divisions, but also fail to comply with section 108. Okay, because the division could cause a parent parcel or parent tract. This deals with specifically a parent tract or parent tract to be divided in more than 4 parcels. All right, so a parent tract. A tract of land is going to be a land, multiple lots, all owned by the same person. So say for instance, you have the lot split map still up there. If that parcel and the 3 parcels to the right of that were all owned by Mr. Bringardner, and only Mr. Bringardner, because he did own them, but he owned them with a partnership. So we don't have identical ownership here. If they were all owned by him, that would be a tract. And they say, well, look, under your municipal ordinance, you can divide something up to 4 times. So say you've got 3 parcels, each part of a tract, and each of those 3 parcels wants to be divided into 2. Well, if you look at section 263, which says the municipality can pass an ordinance that allows a division into not more than 4 parts, you're good, right? Because each of those parcels are being divided into 2 parts. And so no one of them is being divided into more than 4. However, section 108 includes the parent parcel definition. And in a parent parcel, it also includes parent tracts. And so if you have a tract of land that is divided, it can't be divided into more than 4 parts. So if you had the 3 of them, each divided once, or twice, right? You'd have two divisions, you'd have 246. And that would be two more divisions than section 263 allows. So all of these sections have to be read in harmony. And that's what this article deals with. And that's what the court case in Chesterfield Township precisely landed upon. That's how this thing has to be read. We can't have section 263 as a mini land division act that only applies to platted land. So if you have a platted land, ignore everything else that was passed by the legislature. Just go to 263. Well, why didn't they just relabel that Platted Divisions Act? All of it fits together. So I'm asking you to look at our court case, which has almost exactly the same facts here. And it reaches the correct conclusion. It deals with what is a parent parcel. The parent parcel is not the parent parcel as platted back in 1933, but it's the lot that legally exists as of March 31st, 1997.
Okay.
So if you want me to pause here before I go on, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Schultz, do you have any comments, or you want me to go to Mr. Schwartz?
Just a couple, I guess. Now you all know what it's like to be a judge in Oakland County Circuit Court on a Wednesday morning. So two lawyers who disagree about something, and if you're
They send him in the back room.
Yeah, right. And if you're a judge, you got to make a decision. And, I guess we can talk about that in a minute. I guess I just have a little different perspective than this. It won't take as long to say, 263, section 263 was created under the old Subdivision Control Act. So when the applicant here got his 4 parcels out of lot 19 of the platted sub, pretty clearly under the old land division, under the old Subdivision Control Act, he was done. There were not going to be any more splits, and we wouldn't be here talking about this. And so I think the applicant's argument is, well, in 1997, when they passed the Land Division Act and they added this concept of parent parcels and parent tracts in sections 108 and 109, every platted parcel in the city got a reset, and you got 4 more splits, as long as I presume he'd agree he can comply with all the other dimensional kind of requirements. And they didn't change section 263 when they created 108 and 109, and I think there's a reason for that. And I think there's a reason why you have not seen a plethora of split after split under some new life created in 1997 in some of these areas where these big lots and supervisors plats were created, because this was flagged by the city assessor, I think, initially when he took a look at it. And again, I think the reason is that this is not something we see or do, and there's a reason for that. So I understand we're going to have an argument about this. I don't think I really need to. I'm tempted, but not really going to get into the difference between the 2 cases that were cited. We don't normally favor you guys with all sorts of detailed legal opinions, but I expected Mr. Deloach to work hard for his client, so we put together something for you. So I think our position is correct. I think ours is the longstanding typical position. And our recommendation is, as we said in the letter, that you don't really have the right to grant a split.
Okay, Mr. Schwartz?
Yes. As a practicing lawyer, I don't think it's appropriate tonight for us to get into the nuances of federal court versus state court, or the nuances of published or unpublished decisions, or statutory interpretation, and whether we've look at legislative history or not. That's not our role, and we're not acting as lawyers, we're acting as lay planning commissioners. We have a thorough, well-reasoned memorandum by Mr. Schultz, who is a recognized expert in municipal law.
Did we lose you?
In land use law. We have thorough counter argument by Mr. Deloach. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now.
My computer's saying my internet connection's unstable. But when you look at Mr. Schultz's memorandum of September 14th, the very first two sentences are emphatic of his opinion. His first sentence of his conclusion is emphatic that this is not permitted. So this is the city attorney, unequivocal. I think we need to follow it. For that reason, I will move that we disapprove the request for the lot split because the property has already received the
Steve, you're
maximum
gonna,
number of lot divisions allowed under the Michigan Land Division. I'm sorry, what?
I think you might need to repeat that. You really broke up there for a second.
Okay. So following the city attorney's advice, I would move that we disapprove the request for the lot split because the property has already received the maximum number of lot divisions allowed under the Michigan Land Division Act.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Orr seconded.
Can I comment, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Orr.
Being one of the few non-lawyers on the commission anymore. What I heard in this whole discussion was this was platted land. And I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think it was 236 addresses platted land. And even the opposing attorney told us that 107 and 108 dealt with unplatted land. And I'd like to know when the platting went away from this parcel that the other one wouldn't apply, but that's my comment. So I don't really need an answer.
Mr. McRae?
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to run counter to our council's opinion, but I think as a layperson looking at it, it looks just on the surface like, why wouldn't that property be able to be split? But I understand that there are other laws and ordinances in place, and I'm going to defer to that. But I just say to the person driving by and saying those two lots seem like they would fit in the area, I don't think that's an unreasonable request. So at the end of the day, when y'all work it out in court, well, it'd be interesting to see what happens here.
And I guess just to respond to that through the chair, really all it's saying is you can't do it as a land division. It doesn't mean you can't do some sort of replat or something else. It's really just, can you take the easy way as a land division? That's the only question. And I think
All
the
right,
answer is
fair enough. Yeah, because on the surface, it looks like, well, yeah, those would be two normal pieces of property. Why not?
There
Thank
are
you.
ways to deal with it.
Okay. Any other discussions, comments by the commission?
Raise my hand.
Mr. Brickner?
Yes. Oops. Oh, no, I lost it. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter just sent me a bunch of pictures of my grandson. And it took over my screen, even though he's very cute. I've been known to dabble in the legal profession from time to time, and I just use simple math. I see there was one lot, it was lot 19, and then there happened to be 4 lots when you were done. I usually can count, and one of them was flagged, which we don't allow anymore either, but that's okay. But I still see 1, 2, 3, 4. And looking at 560.263, it appears that any type of land division on the part of the municipality, it says the municipality may permit the partitioning or dividing of lots, outlots, or other parcels of land into not more than 4 parts. And it goes on a little bit from there. But to me, this is not a mandatory shall like in 108 and 109. It's a decision of the municipality, and it's a may situation. So we don't have to do it even if they ask for it, because to me, may means we may do it if we wanted to. So that's my question to our city attorney. And the comment I will make is that we are bound by the advice we get from our city attorney, because he's the person who knows what to do and advises us. So we follow the recommendations of our council. But my question still remains: is it appears under 5560.263 that this is not mandatory. It's discretionary on the part of the city, the municipality, to permit the partitions. Am I right or am I wrong? Go back and shut up.
Actually, Member Brickner, I guess I didn't focus on that part in anything we put together to you or for you. I think we focused a little more on the not more than.
Yeah, I know.
4 parts. So
But
it's a fair comment, and it's one to think about if this moves on from here.
Yeah, well, then my position is simple, and I agree with some of the other members of the commission that if our city attorney says that this is not, we have to follow 560.263, and this is an additional, this will make 5 lots as opposed to 4 lots, which we already have. And just by not naming it 19-4, it doesn't mean there's not 4 of them there. The one of the division occurred in 1991. And even I can say, I wasn't even on the planning commission back in 1991. I was in 97 though. So that's my comment. I was just curious about the permission versus the mandatory, and that's what I was looking for an answer on.
Sure.
But thank you.
Yep.
Mr. McRae, did you just not put your hand down, or do you have another comment?
Sorry, I forgot about that.
No problem. Any other commissioner comments? Nope. Okay, Ms. McGuire, can you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Orr,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Treflet,
Yes.
Turner, Commissioner Turner.
You're still muted.
Yeah.
There you go. Commissioner Turner?
I'll go ahead and come back to him. Commissioner Brickner,
Yes.
Conigan,
Yes.
Manti,
Aye.
McRae.
Yes,
Let's try Commissioner Turner again. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Thank you. And Chair Stimson.
Yes.
I think I caught everybody.
Yep, you did.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's been denied. Okay, next we're on to regular meeting, item B, the site plan 54-6-2020. The location is 30836 and 30790 8 Mile Road. The proposal is a office and garage for contractor equipment in an LI1 light industrial district. Action requested is approval of a site plan, and the applicant is Casey Leach PE and SIDOC Group Inc. Can we hear from Giffords Webster, please?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so we're back down on 8 Mile. And this is a site that's currently used for some equipment storage. It has a building toward the north end. It's 7.71 acres, zoned LI1 light industrial. Primarily a gravel lot at present. There's that garage at the far rear of the lot. That building has a non-conforming rear setback. It's actually proposed to be removed now. Initially, it was not proposed to be changed. It's proposed to be removed. That building will be demolished. Gravel lots used in part for truck parking and other equipment. Adjacent land uses, this is surrounded by other industrial zoning and other industrial uses, and that includes across 8 Mile and Livonia. It's accessed directly from 8 Mile Road. The plan does propose to rebuild the existing driveways, and one driveway provides access to the asphalt parking area, and the other provides access to the yard on the eastern portion of the property. There's also a gate that leads out to that driveway on the far eastern part of the driveway on the plan. So they're proposing to construct a new garage building with an office suite. That's 23,000 square feet. It's going to provide storage for construction equipment. That's a permitted use in the LI1 district. 1,250 square feet of the building is devoted to the office suite. Another 1,250 square feet is occupied by a maintenance office and locker room. The existing building at the far rear of the site is going to be demolished, and the rest of the site is proposed to be paved with concrete. So they'll concrete all over the rest of it. The dimensional requirements of the LI1 district are met. As for parking, the proposed use requires 1 parking space per 1,300 square feet of usable floor area, or 3 spaces plus 1 for each 1.5 employees on the largest shift, whichever is greater. And what we found was that there was a requirement of 14 spaces plus the 3 for a total of 17. And the parking that's proposed does meet that standard. And they've kept the parking and maneuvering lanes out of the front yard per the ordinance in the LI1 district. So that standard is met as well. That's the required front yard. So they don't have a specific loading space identified on the plan. And normally 2 would be provided for a building of this size. A note on sheet C200 states that loading space is provided at the overhead doors of the building and in the area adjacent to these doors. And we can let the applicant speak to this, but what I think they mean by that is that some of that loading space is actually inside the building, and then some of it is outside in front of those doors. So when we look at storage in the LI1 district per section 34.314, all storage of materials in the LI1 district shall be in the rear yard. The building's purpose is storage. That's compliant with the ordinance. Large portion of the site east of the building is proposed to be a concrete yard. The intended use of that yard isn't really clear from the plan. Table on the site plan does propose a contractor storage yard. But the extent isn't really discussed. So we'd like to discuss that with them tonight in some internal discussions. The city's position is generally that they have an obscuring fence that goes around this whole yard and obscures it from the right of way. Things that don't protrude above that fence are not going to be considered in violation of the ordinance, but things that do would be. So if it's a taller item, it's got to go back in that rear yard. And that brings us to the screening fences. They are proposing to screen the concrete yard on the eastern portion with a 6-foot galvanized steel fence that's set back 51 feet from the property, from the right of way. And that screening is required to completely obscure what's stored. And it appears that so long as what they store there is short enough, doesn't exceed that 6-foot height, it will accomplish the obscuring effect. Exterior lighting. So the lighting looks generally compliant. One thing that did confuse us is that on the lighting plan, there are these 2 fixtures kind of down by the road, and it looks like they would be illuminating grass or possibly a portion of a driveway, but like primarily grass. So we were confused by that. We weren't sure if those were just an artifact from an earlier version of the plan that had things further forward on the lot. So we would like them to address that this evening. They're providing their pedestrian connection to the sidewalk along 8 Mile. That's as required in 519. They're not proposing any rooftop equipment, and they do have a dumpster enclosure, and that appears compliant with 34 5.1.3D. As for tree removal, what they're proposing does appear to be compliant with the ordinance. We do need a superimposed tree survey from them. The sheet that they've labeled superimposed tree survey places the trees on the site plan, but we also need something that places them on an aerial of the site. It's just an ordinance requirement. And then they've got their 2-foot hedge in front of the parking. They actually put it along the entire frontage of the site, so it kind of obscures the base of the fence as well. And then they have the 7 required parking lot trees as well. And they've got a total of 10 to also meet the replacement requirement. So a few issues to discuss this evening, but overall the plan is mostly compliant. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Mr. Orr?
Thank you very much. On the cover sheet submitted with the application, they have a site plan, and they're showing the subject site is much larger. Is there ownership of a much larger piece of property than what we're looking at here?
What and Mark is pointing out, Mark.
Yeah, they've included all of that on the cover sheet as their site plan or a subject site, when not all of it is the subject site. And I'm just kind of, normally that's an indication of ownership rather than when we see something like that. I'm just curious.
Sure, that's actually an interesting question. I know the site that they're proposing everything on is this L-shaped piece that we've been discussing tonight. I don't know if they own the rest of that or not, or if it was just a generalization on the cover sheet. They were trying to show the adjacent properties. Mark might be able to speak to that.
The applicant surely should, but.
Yeah, I would leave that to the applicant.
Yeah, but there is a shared driveway with that building kind of behind where the storage yard goes. You can see it on the eastern edge of the property. And there is a gate out to that driveway from the storage yard. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Mark. So yeah, the applicant can speak to what the relationship is there.
But isn't part of that driveway that crosses, isn't there access to 8 Mile from that building that you're looking at? Isn't that through this property, this parcel?
That's
or
correct.
And so shouldn't we have a cross-access agreement of some sort? Or
Yes, it would have to be.
We would need to know, they're showing this all the way over to the right. And if it's common ownership, that's one thing. But if it's not common ownership, then, and they own the property all the way over to the right where this other driveway is, and there has to be a cross-access agreement of some sort, does there not?
Yes, there would be, yes.
So it seems to me we're a little unprepared tonight unless the applicant can tell us a lot about this. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, any other commissioner questions for Giffords Webster? Okay, if not, can we hear from the applicant, please?
This is Casey Leach with SIDOC Group. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Leach.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for your time tonight. I'll try to be brief. Just a little bit of history and what's going on here is D'Angelo Brothers is an underground contractor They install sanitary water main storm sewer. They're actually the on-call emergency contractor for the city of Farmington Hills. What they're doing is they're moving from the building you can see in the bottom right corner of your screen there. That's the building they occupy right now, and they park their vehicles to the north. Yep, right there. They park their vehicles to the north of that, outside behind the building. What they'd like to do is construct a garage to put their equipment, their vehicles in. This is going to help them, you know, maintain those vehicles. It's going to keep them out of the weather. And one of the big things is when you have a water main break, that's typically in the winter. And so it's going to allow them to keep their equipment warm so that they can respond a lot faster to these emergency calls. And that's kind of, that's the reason that they're looking to move here and to build this garage. So I can go through and answer, I think I'll go in reverse order of how I think some of these questions were asked. I think that Commissioner Orr had questions about was there existing easement? And if you look at the topographic survey, if you zoom in on that eastmost drive on the subject parcel, the red call out there is an existing 20-foot ingress and egress easement, and it's recorded already. So that building central to the site, that's already covered with an existing easement. What was another question? I think Commissioner Orr also asked about why does the survey incorporate a larger tract of land, I guess. That's because there's co-ownership between D'Angelo Brothers and their property company, D'Anco and D'Anco 2. So several of the individuals involved in the ownership of the companies that own these properties, you know, are the same people. So they have interest in some properties around here. And then going up to, I think that covered the questions from the commissioners, up to Mr. Tangari's report, the superimposed tree survey. We did read that letter, and we could not find where it said that it had to be an aerial in the zoning ordinance. And this was kind of a new comment for us. If that's something that we have to do to get this approved, we'd be happy to do it. And I guess we'd ask for approval contingent. We submitted that. If that was a sticking point, that's no problem. That we can produce something like that. The lights out at the front. So a lot of times these guys, they have to respond to emergency calls in the middle of the night. So they're waking up their men and they're coming in the middle of the night. They like to have lights on the drive as they're operating this heavy machinery. So they do want the drives lit. What else do I have? The use of the east yard. So mainly that east yard is going to be used for maneuvering and staging of their equipment as they leave for the day and come in for the day. And it's also going to allow them to, the bottom two bays, the southmost two bays on the garage, they're going to use that for their larger pieces of equipment. So they're going to really need to pull out far into that east portion of, I guess I'll call it the L-shaped part of that parcel, the east leg of that. So really that's going to be the primary use of that is maneuvering, staging. I don't believe that they don't plan on any like bulk storage of product or anything like that. And anything that is over there would be under the 6 foot if it's going to sit out overnight or anything like that. That's my understanding. Based on what our clients told us, use the east yard loading space. Yes, the loading space. So they will take deliveries at the southmost overhead doors, and in inclement weather, they can allow delivery trucks to pull into the garage and load there as well. So I think that covers all the items that have been brought up so far. And I'm here to answer any other questions if anybody has anything else.
Okay, any question, Mr. Orr?
Well, I would like to thank the applicant for pointing out where the egress was, and thank God for magnifying glasses.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? No? Any motions?
I'm sorry, through the chair, this is
Yeah,
Mark Steck.
Mr. Steck.
I had one question for the proponent. Is there a desire to combine these 4 parcels that are involved? As we mentioned, there's, these 4 parcels shown on the site plan into one single parcel? Objection to that?
Not that I'm aware of at this time. I don't think D'Angelo has a plan for what they're going to do with their existing building, if they're going to, possibly lease that out or sell it. I know that Vince D'Angelo is an attendee of this meeting. His phone number, it ends in 1942. I mean, if he wants to speak to that, he's more than welcome to.
Okay. Can we unmute him? There we go.
Go ahead, Vince.
Can we unmute him?
I've asked.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Yep.
Evening. Thank you, Angela. Appreciate your time as usual. Yeah, no, we don't have any intent on combining. We want to solely move our operation due to growth further to the west of this new parcel. As Casey mentioned, we want to house all our equipment. We want to organize it. We want to keep it cleaner. Currently, we have the building to the east that we would still own and are to sublease, lease that of some sort if need be.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Any other questions or a motion? Okay, Mr. Orr.
Mr. Chair, I would like to move that site plan 54-6-220 dated August 17th, 220, submitted by Casey Leach of the SIDOC group be approved because it appears to meet the applicable requirements of the zoning chapter. Subject to the following conditions: a tree survey to be supplied to satisfy the requirements of the city, negotiations to follow, I guess, if they, but at any rate, they need to solve that issue. And also the storage should comply as to the height over the fence. Section 34, 3.14 of the zoning ordinance. And the screening should noted below, noted in item 12 of Giffords Webster, shall comply with the completely obscuring of storage. We've received the information on the light fixtures. And I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Support.
Was that Mr. Treflet? Okay. Okay, support by Mr. Treflet. Discussion? Okay, Ms. McGuire, can you take roll?
Commissioner Schwartz,
Aye.
Treflet,
Aye.
Turner,
Aye.
Brickner,
Yes.
Hannigan,
Yes.
Manti,
Aye.
McRae,
Yes.
Orr,
Yes.
Chair Stimson.
Yes. Okay, passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, well, I guess I'll make a comment that anyone in the public who wishes to speak at this point, either raise your hand on the Zoom meeting. And we'll leave that open until we get through the approval of minutes and commissioner comments. So next on the list is approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move that the minutes for August 20th, 2020 be adopted as published.
Okay. Is there a
Support.
Second it.
Who is the second?
Treffitt.
Treffitt, okay. Discussion? Okay, Ms. McGuire, can you take roll?
Commissioner Treffitt,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Brickner,
Yes.
Hannigan,
Yes. Yes.
Manti,
Aye.
McRae. McRae,
Yes.
Orr,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Aye.
Chris Simpson.
Yes. Okay, commissioner comments. Mr. Brickner?
Well, first of all, well, the only thing I really want to say is, Chris, I'm going to miss you. I've been working with you since 1999 on the council, and I'm sad to see you and Maureen leave Farmington Hills, but I'm sure it's for a good reason. I know the kids have left the house, but it's always been a pleasure working with you. I always like your opinion, and I'm going to miss you.
Well, Barry, thank you. I appreciate those kind words. That's very nice. I'm gonna miss y'all too.
Mr. Connigan?
Likewise, Chris and Maureen, we're going to miss you guys, and we look forward to crossing paths, hopefully in not too distant future. You take care, and thank you very much for everything you've done for the city.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Manny?
Well, I don't know where you're going, Chris. I missed the last meeting, but not only have you helped us a lot with all of our lighting issues as a commission, but also down at the Cheese Lady. Thank you so much. So I hope you still need a lot of cheese and you're not too far away.
No, we won't be. We're just, I can't be on the council, on the commission if I'm living outside the city limits, they tell me. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of a rule. So, but we still know our way over to the Cheese Lady. So no worries there.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McRae?
Well, I do appreciate everybody's comments, and it's a very bittersweet moment, I gotta say. It's been a long time, and it's been a very interesting ride, I gotta say. But on to new things, new adventures, and yeah, we'll just see what the future holds. So
Where are
never
you
dull moment,
moving?
I guess.
Where are you moving to, Chris?
We're moving to downtown Northville.
Okay.
In fact, we're moving on Saturday, so our house is a little bit of a disarray right now. So, yeah, it is what it is. So it will be that, and one day when you guys are doing in-person meetings again, I'll come by one just to say hello and see how y'all are doing. And this isn't how I wanted to go out, but this is what we have to work with. So appreciate everybody's kind thoughts, and like I said, this has been a long and enjoyable ride, and I'm glad I've been able to help the city in various ways over the years, on just about every level of commission and council along the way. So I thank you all for your support, and we'll see you down the road.
Okay. Mr. Orr?
Well, Chris, it's been nice sitting next to you in the last couple of years. We've had a couple of good private discussions, and as somebody famous once said, we'll keep a light on for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Schwartz?
I just want to echo the comments. I served with Chris for about 10 years on this commission or the ZBA, and Farmington Hills is very different than most cities, and you've been a key part of that. I appreciate how respectful you are to the public and how respectful you are to the other commissioners, and your comments were always well thought out and right on point, and we will miss you. And hopefully when we're all vaccinated, we'll all take you out for a beer.
Sounds like a good one. All right. Thanks, Steve.
Mr. Traffitt?
Yeah, it's been a short period with the two of us, but I'm gonna miss your lighting expertise is what I'm gonna miss. So I think maybe I'll get your phone number and I'll just text you when I have questions.
There you go. There you go. I'm always up for an opinion. Have a comment on a lot of things.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Mr.
Fair enough.
Turner?
Chris, it's been nice working with you this past year. Good luck in your new endeavor.
Thanks so much, Bob. Appreciate that.
Well, Chris, you were the chair when I first joined, and I think I got to learn from the best. So,
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure working with you. Best of luck, and hope to see you when this is when we're back in person.
Like I said, I'm gonna haunt you guys a little bit when I know you guys are back in the chamber there.
Great.
If I could, through the chair, if I could just, normally I wouldn't jump in on your comment period. If this is Mark Steck, the staff planner, if I could just say something.
Go ahead, Mr. Steck.
Chris, yeah, I'd just like to say too, you've been here since I've worked here, and you've shed light on much greater things than just lighting for this planning commission. And I've learned a lot from you. It's been a pleasure, and I'm going to miss you. And
Thank you so much, Mark.
I do look forward to seeing you again when we're having beer and or whatever we have when we get together as a group again. So.
Well, Jerry told me today she's holding a cake for me, so hope
All
it's
right.
not too long. Hope it's not too long.
Okay. Did we have any public want to speak? Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay, so how about
Move to
Mr.
adjourn.
McCray? You give us the motion to adjourn.
Never mind.
I will. Was there something somebody else wanted to say there?
No, I'm waiting for you. So I can
Okay.
second.
Oh, very good. So with that, I would adjourn the Planning Commission meeting, September 17th, 2020.
Sport.
Okay. Ms. McGuire, can you take roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Turner,
Yes.
Brickner,
Yes.
Hannigan,
Yes.
Mantee,
No, that's my protest vote to keep Chris around.
Is that even possible?
I
okay.
can vote no.
Are you going to be, do you want me to put you down as a no?
Sure.
McCray,
Yes, I'd like this to end.
or
Yes.
Schwartz,
I think Mante's been eating too much of his cheese. I vote yes.
Treffitt,
Yes.
and Chair Stimson.
Yes.
All right.
Great. I forgot to ask real quickly, Mark, next meeting.
Oops. Yeah, will be October 15th.
October 15th. Okay.
And
Mark?
we're still looking at remote meetings still.
Okay.
Does that mean I can do meetings from Florida this year?
Certainly, you can do meetings from, as long as you got internet connection, you can do them from anywhere.
Oh.
Okay. Well, have a good one, everyone, and look forward to speaking with you all on the 15th.
All right, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Night all.
Right.
Right.